Hi, I'm Dr. Jason J. Campbell, and I want to thank you for taking the time to watch my videos. This video today is sponsored. It's sponsored by Lil Wayne, The Carter 4. It's specifically sponsored by track number 3 and track number 10. So, this lecture today comes to you courtesy of track number 3 and number 10. Especially number 10. I like that. Aesthetics. These are the books that we're using. Click the first link to get the books. Next thing, these are the notes we'll be using. Click the link in the description field. It'll take you to the notes. And make sure you check the notes frequently, just to make sure you have the most up-to-date version. In this section today, I'm still going to be doing Heidegger's analysis on aesthetics. I'm probably, I don't know exactly where I am as far as the hour count, but I think I'm about maybe 4 to 5 hours maybe. I might be approaching 6, I'm not sure, but I think definitely 4 to 5 hours into the lecture series, and we still have quite a bit of Heidegger to do. We've probably done maybe 5 pages, 6 pages of the text. The idea is to make this comprehensive. I'm in no rush, I have nothing but time. So I want to make a meaningful contribution to aesthetics, and I think Heidegger's approach is ridiculously complicated. In that sense, it's fun because it's challenging for me to try and wrap my mind around his abstract thought, but it helps me as a philosopher develop my abstract thinking, because, you know, as a theorist, as an ideologist, all that I do is abstract thought. So I really do need to start conceptualizing on that very, very, very generalized level, which is difficult. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to continue my analysis in Heidegger. We'll be looking again into section 1.3 at the bottom of page 5 of the text. So that's where we'll begin. And get your notes and let's get started. Alright, so this is going to be aesthetics. And this is section 1.3. Okay. Again, we're going to be using this text today, so make sure you get the book. Again, as always, use my video lectures and my notes as a means of supplementing your existing knowledge, your existing reading. It'll help develop. And let me just take one quick second so that it's clear. It'll help develop your critical thinking skills, right? You might have read a section in Heidegger. If you have the book and you read it and you went over it, not necessarily glossed over it, but you didn't catch some of the finer nuances that I've, spotlighted, then you can go back after having read it first on your own and say to yourself, oh, okay, now I see what Dr. Campbell saw. I didn't see that, and how he connected it to that. Okay, now I understand, right? So what I'm doing really is I'm mapping out, very explicitly, mapping out the conceptual web with which I critically analyze text. It's just my way. The idea is think of starting to understand the way in which I understand, you understanding the way in which I understand text, and then you can borrow, right? You can read a bit of Heidegger, use some of my critical insight, use your own critical insight, and come to your own conclusions, right? That's the whole point. My approach is merely that. It's an approach to understanding text. Specifically with Heidegger, though, I think it's super important because, it's a frustrating read, to say the least. But I think the reward in continuing through the text is just apparent. Okay, so bottom of page 5, section 1.3, the origin of the work of art, Martin Heidegger. So for Heidegger, one of the defining qualities of equipment is its usefulness, right? So this is going to be very, very important, right? So when we talk about equipment, right, for Heidegger, one of the defining qualities is its usefulness. Equipment is useful. Very simple, right? So one of the defining qualities of equipment is the use of the equipment. Now, I'm a horrible artist, so I'll try and draw a hammer as best as I can. I can't really draw, and this is sad. guess that's not too bad for a hammer. Right, and this is a hammer. So one of the defining qualities of equipment is the equipment's usefulness. You can imagine that I have a hammer laying around the house somewhere, and I need to, hammer a board to a wall for whatever purposes. The whole point is, well, I don't want to jump ahead. We'll go slow, right? Insofar as the hammer is there, ready to be used, one of the defining qualities of the equipment, the hammer in this example, is my ability to grab the hammer and immediately use it in order to put nails in a wall, put nails through a board, right? So it's sort of obvious, right? For Heidegger, one of the defining qualities, and for those of you who know Heidegger, know why I picked the hammer. For Heidegger, one of the defining qualities of equipment is its usefulness. The artist may attempt to demonstrate the usefulness of ordinary equipment in a meaningful way, right? That's very, very important, right? The artist may attempt to demonstrate of equipment. Okay? The artist attempts to demonstrate the usefulness of equipment. Right? This point obviously is debatable, and depending on what type of art you do, you might specifically want to construct the type of art where there isn't any use in the art, which is, we'll get to that later. But the idea is, for general purposes, the idea is to demonstrate the usefulness of the equipment. Now, in terms of art itself, right? In terms of art itself, not as a means of demonstrating equipment, but as itself. The presentation of art itself is, in a sense, useful, and we'll have to understand why, because it's going to be a little conceptually abstract. It's going to be quite conceptually abstract to identify what exactly the use of art is. Remember, he said earlier that we look at art as different from a bag of potatoes, a bag of coal being transported on a train. But insofar as art isn't in its proper realm, then, if we don't contextualize art, then it's going to be hard to differentiate coal, potatoes, and the painting, right? In what sense is it different? I actually saw an amazing critique, again, by just the greatest philosopher ever. Well, I wouldn't say the greatest philosopher ever. It's a bit of a hyperbole. But I want to say it was City of Men was the name of the movie, and I saw this insane critique that Zizek gave of a scene where some billionaire guy took a statue and brought it into his house. And Zizek gives this this incredibly insightful critique of the meaninglessness of the piece of art, insofar as the art has been taken out of the context with which it was to be displayed. Right? The artist, I don't want to jump ahead here, but the artist has an intent insofar as not only the construction of the art, but where the art is displayed. Insofar as the art is removed from its intended location, if it's sort of a geospatial piece, and brought into the confines of someone's home, it loses its meaning. And when I get home, if I remember, I'm going to Google Zizek, City of Men. Right, so Slavoj Žižek does, of course, as always, just an absolutely brilliant critique, sort of an aesthetic critique. And I'm going to try and see if I can actually find it and link it to the series, right? Because I just really loved what Zizek's critique was. He, I think, properly and correctly located, though he didn't get into any sort of, depth per se, because he wanted to make his commentary accessible to the masses. But what he's saying is that art has use, right? There is a usefulness to art. And that usefulness is itself contextualized, just like there is a use to the hammer, and the hammer is there ready for us to pick up and use. So too does art have use. It has use. What that use will be, we'll need a ton more conceptual we'll need a lot more conceptual notions and thoughts